scratched.
Did you see it got blocked on one of these?
T-shirt. So now we think he's
good at maths.
right.
Naturally.
It's all that adds now, isn't it?
Okay, well, so she's human then.
Oh, there is some. Well, I'll shoot you.
Alex plays Fortnite for about a fortnight.
That's the best way to do it.
In like, it's like, oh my god, we're going to have to do something about this, and then it'll just fizzle down.
Felix has got something like two.
Right.
It's very echoey though. That's for the
They
real.
both do now and then. I don't mind when playing
Yeah, if you like, well, that's picking up the room.
Doing a bit of interior design with the VR headset. So it's just like making a room and then restyling it in a, you know, the VR headset. So she can walk around in her interior design. Creating one of those things going on there.
Find one of those. It's like cock up on the old stand front. The base, I took it off and forgot to bring it with me. So Ross has hopefully shoved it on there for us for now. I could lower it a bit actually, because that's probably, it's mainly to get the room noise. How's the video looking? Sorry, I'm chatting to across you there.
Oh, okay. Everton Live. Reasons kind of a production engineer's tool.
He just wanted to sit away. It's all sample based anyway, so it's not really useful.
Ableton's very good for like live performance. Very good.
I'm going to pinch this lead up here.
Yeah, I didn't know which lead you wanted to say.
No, it's okay, don't worry. I'm going to use this for a different one. There's never one that's long enough, is there? The Velcro's gone a bit.
Still there. Worrying.
Still here.
Right, there we go. Right, sorry. We're recording it, so. I'm going to put the camera on.
reveal the answers at the end then. Or the answer. Shall I start or?
Oh, sorry, you were all waiting.
Yeah.
We're all waiting with bated
Oh, I thought
breath
you were waiting.
to be given the yes.
Well, for some reason, it's not come out.
Is it just
Just one second, if I get going in a minute, in 1 minute, I'll just give up on that. I'll be used to it all. I didn't realise you guys, I wonder why you've gone quiet.
I know.
Now there's extra pressure, you see, so I can tell if you're watching and listening.
I'll just say then, honey, where you've got, I think, is it France? Is it France? France, sorry, France. You'll know, but honey, these two honeys are kind of the same colour-ish, and I've done that on purpose, because just to kind of throw you, because people think honey is one colour, but we do get quite runny, clear honey, very dark honey. I don't know if anyone's had heather honey, and how thick and very dark and heavy it is. And you get from the same hive, like I've got 2 hives up here, the honey in spring will be different colour, taste, texture than it would summer honey, because the bees are foraged on different flowers in spring. So you have all spring trees and flowers, and then change, and then you'll have your summer forage, which will be completely different.
We started.
Not yet, no. Just trying
One more thing.
Improv, what's it called?
Is that the same with the wax then? You get a different
Well,
sort of...
what?
Don't ask all the questions first.
Sorry.
Yeah, questions first.
No, I didn't say that.
presentation later.
Yeah,
The
it
wax
would be on the...
is usually a kind of darker colour because it's mixed with a bit of honey and pollen and resin as they're making it. But pure wax is kind of that colour but lighter.
Oh no, that one's
This is wax I bought
Right.
to make up frames.
Right.
So you get the frames all flat packed, and then just
there we go.
comes as a sheet. You put it in,
Right.
and then it looks like that.
So the mix is actually broken.
Yeah.
It's got honey dripped on it.
Oh, sorry about that. Hello, hey, here we go. It's not very loud, but it's mostly for the recording. So do you mind holding that? Is it going to be really awkward?
No, yeah.
It's got a nice red, fetching red.
Unless you
Changed the whole.
stick it on there, Dan, no?
I talk loud. So.
Well, we're using both. That one's getting you lot,
Fair dues.
and that one's getting you. It's for the recording. So. There you go. I can turn it. Can I pinch your seat off? Right. Pass it to me if you need to. If you want to put it down.
Okay.
Far right. Sorry about that.
All right, thank you for coming. My name is Andrea. I'll be talking about bees and beekeeping, and I've taken it more to wax and how bees make wax, just because there'll be the tech side to it, which I think Jackie will be talking about later. I like reading about it, so I will be talking about it. What we'll be talking about, what are we talking about? Bees generally, so not just honeybees, and then I'll talk about, narrow it down to honeybees and what their duties are, who does what and why, and then how bees make wax, what the wax is made of, and the uses of wax and honey in history, like a very, very sort of small list. And I've got some samples of wax or products from the hive that I've brought with me. Honey taste challenge, if you've not had a go, have a go later, I'll give you the answers. And then I'm looking to collaborate with some people on a project that I'm thinking about what to do this year. Okay, and if you've got any questions, just kind of ask away. Right, so when people think of bees, they kind of generally tend to think about bumblebees, big fluffy black and yellow bees. There's actually 3 types of bee. There's a solitary bee, bumblebees, and honeybee. And so I just thought, I don't want to miss out the other bees, but solitary bees, these are the ones that we have most of in the country. And over 90% of our bees are solitary bees. So these are, as you guess, they live by themselves. And they live, I don't know if you've seen bug houses or with bamboo. If you kind of imagine a tower block, we all lived in a tower block, and we never spoke to the neighbours. It's kind of how solitary bees live. They just live so close next to each other that you think, oh, they all live together, but it's not really loud then. So they live solitary, so either in the ground or cavities in walls, or you've probably seen in between paving blocks them going down into the ground. And they look like, they vary from, they look like a little bit like a hairy ant with wings, or they look like a honeybee as well. Yeah, not aggressive, don't swarm, really safe, really friendly, and you're not likely to sort of see a solitary bee. You okay? Do you want to come and sit down? You're all right? So yeah, they're solitary bees, really. And out of all the bees, actually, I'll ask that question later. If you just look at that top left one there, that's pollen. That's how it carries pollen. They don't have pollen sacs on their legs. They kind of cover themselves with it. And then bumblebees. So 25 species of bumblebee in England, and there's 7 of the most common. The rest of them are quite rare or sort of on endangered list in England. They live in colonies between 50 and 500. Has anybody seen bumblebee's nest?
On a compost heap.
Yeah, perfect place for them. Those ones, they live in a colony, and the queen, say for example now this time of year, the queen will be hibernating, and then she'll wake up in spring, and usually the first signs of spring, we see massive bumblebee, and it is just bumbling about. It's kind of like quite slow and bumping into things like the queen generally, and she'll wake up, look for food, and then she'll find somewhere. So that could be in the bottom of a lawn, or as I'm called out to a lot, underneath a trampoline. I say, Andrea, there's a swarm under the kids' trampoline. And so she'll go there, and then she'll lay eggs. And their nest, if you've not seen it, this is a bumblebee nest. I was helping someone out in their garden, and it was under a collapsed shed. And the bumblebees flying out, so I'm sure there's a nest under there. So I took it all apart, and kind of that's what it looked like first, and then that's what it looked like inside. It's sort of like Maltesers. You suck all the chocolate off a Malteser. you know, and she's kind of hiding and stuff. And how many eggs do you think, say, mid-May till mid-June, how many eggs a day does she lay? Have a guess. In one day, the peak time when she lays eggs, how many, have a guess, in one day? It's a good guess. It's a little bit less than that. It's about 2,000 a day she lays, which is quite phenomenal, really, if you think about how many eggs chickens lay a day. So, yeah, what happens, the workers, they will build, so just say this has got honey all over it. I make these frames like this. They come flat packed and I put the sheet of wax in. And the hexagon shape there is the impression to kind of get the bees started. So they'll kind of follow that on. And once they've made all the cells, loads of cells, and they're busy because they need to, the wax is like building a house, they need the room. Once they're built, the queen will lay eggs in that. But those cells are also not just for eggs, but it's also for pollen and nectar as well. So it's kind of like shelves, loads of shelves in a room. Okay. She'll mate only once. That's kind of debatable, really, because sometimes she'll mate a few times, but she'll go out to mate, and once she's mated, that's it. She flies back in the hive. And the only time she'll leave a hive is in a swarm or when she's out to mate. She won't leave the hive any other time.
What does she make with a king bee?
A drone bee, yeah.
So that's what the drones are for.
You've been watching, what's that film? Bee movie, is it? No, she'll mate with a drone from another hive, not from her own hive. Queen can live up to 5 years, which is quite a long time, really. As a beekeeper, generally, or as kind of, if bees were to live in the wild, they'd naturally swarm. So as the queen, sometimes if she's going to like 2 or 3 years, they'll think, oh, she's starting to fail, her eggs aren't, she's not laying male eggs and female eggs. She's only laying just male eggs. It's like she's running out of sperm, so she's just laying male eggs, drones. And so as she's laying eggs, they'll pick one egg of hers, which is a female, and they'll feed it loads of royal jelly, and that develops into another queen. So before she emerges, the old queen thinks, right, there can only be one queen in this hive. So I'm going to go, and that's her. She'll swarm with a few thousand, maybe half of the workers. And it'll leave the new queen, the virgin queen, to emerge. And every queen has pheromones, but because she's not been mated, her pheromones aren't strong yet. So the other bees don't really know she's a queen. So she goes out, she's mated, she comes back, and then that's when they know. And you'll see on this picture as well, the worker bees surrounding the queen. And it's like an entourage, and they are grooming the queen. And they also, as a duty of a worker bee, they pass the scent of the queen around the hive. And the scent of the queen keeps the hive really calm. So you can tell when you have no queen in the hive. I mean, I don't know what it's manic. They dive bomb you, and because they're out of control, if they don't have that sort of leader and the pheromones to keep them calm. And then because of that, worker bees who are female, they'll also think, well, I can lay eggs. They don't have that. They're not suppressed. They don't have that pheromone that suppresses them from the queen to say, don't lay eggs. So because there's no queen, the workers think, I'll lay eggs. And the workers are female, but they can only lay male eggs, which is no good. Well, you'll find out why in a minute. Okay. Any questions about the queen bee? Oh, 5 colours as well. Because the queen lives up to 5 years, beekeepers will use, there's 5 colours to mark what age she is. So this year it's green, I think it is, yeah. And that's a universal thing. If you go to China, Australia, Brazil, wherever, if you see a queen that's red, you'll think, okay, she was born 2018. And it goes on the sort of saying, will you raise good bees? So it's white, yellow, red, green, blue. That's kind of how the colour system works. So I know when I look in my hive, if I see a red dotted bee that I've done last year, I know she was born last year and not 5 years before, because you don't live that long.
When you say they make once, it's just once in life rather than
Yeah.
once a year.
Yeah, just the once. Okay. So yeah, sometimes if you catch a swarm, if there's been a swarm, and I've caught swarms before, and the queen's dotted a colour already, so you know how old she is. Because sometimes if you catch a swarm, you think, oh, this is lucky, this is great, but you don't know what you get, and you don't know if you've got a diseased bee, or you've got poor bees, or an old queen, or I don't know, anything that aggressive bees as well, aggressive queen, aggressive bees. So you don't know what you get. And I've caught a swarm before and they've been really aggressive. And I've had to kind of move them somewhere that I thought they're not going to be a problem to me or anyone else. But generally they say that the more aggressive a bee, the harder worker it is. Because I bought a couple of colonies of Welsh black bees last year. And they're a little bit darker than regular sort of honeybees. You get lots of breeds. You have one type of honeybee, like a dog, one type of dog, but you get loads of different breeds of dog, but they're still a dog. It's like honeybees. There's one honeybee and lots of breeds. And these ones were the black British bees, which they thought were going extinct, and they're not extinct now. And yeah, they're quite aggressive. You get other ones called Carniolan and Buckfast, and they're quite calm bees. Has anyone heard of Buckfast Abbey? Yeah. And I forget the name of the monk. There's a monk. Come back to me. Brother Adam. That's it, thank you. Brother Adam, from a beekeeper from kind of late 1800s, early 1900s. There's always 1900s. Oh yeah. He was a beekeeper. You'll find that lots of monasteries and nuns, convents and things around the world, they're quite big on beekeeping. And Buckfast Abbey down in Devon, Brother Adam wanted to create a strain, a breed of bee that was gentle, not aggressive, but quite produce a lot of honey, make a lot of honey. So he bred a Buckfast bee, which is a breed of bee that you can get. But say that again. Yeah, you do. You can't control who your bees are going to mate with other drones in other places. So it's all kind of very watered down, isn't it, whatever bees you get now. So duties of the worker bee. Can you think? When a worker bee emerges, and she's born, because all the workers are female, what do you think her first job is? I'll tell you. 1 to 2 days, she's cleaning. So she emerges chews her way out, like that, and she's cleaning the hive. 3 to 5 days, she's feeding the older larvae. So these are bees that haven't developed into adult bees yet. 6 to 11, she's feeding the youngest ones. She's not left the hive at this point. So she's always in the hive. 12 to 20 days, she develops wax glands, and she's able to build wax then, produce wax and build comb. She carries food, which is pollen and nectar, from the bees that are foraging. So it's kind of like getting the shopping from someone who's been out and then putting it inside the hive. And they do undertaker duties, which is they go out the hive for the first time, but not very far. So that the bees each hive will have a place where they drop their dead and they go to the toilet. And it's usually about within 6 metre radius of the hive. So that's why worker bees, they don't forage too close to the hive. Because I've met people before who said, oh, I've got a big garden. The bees, they'll be foraging. They won't go anywhere else. They'll forage in my garden. It's like, well, they won't forage in some places because there'll be a funeral pyre of bees in one place and then they'll be using it as a toilet in another. So they don't generally forage too close. Then 18 to 21 days, she's guarding the entrance. So what do you think she's guarding against? What would like to get into the hive, apart from me?
which they probably guard against me anyway.
Badges?
Badges? Possibly, yeah. Actually, this time of year now, I know someone who, the hive entrance, which you can see on that bottom there, a mouse got in because it thought, oh, it's a nice place to hibernate. It's warm. The bees are keeping it nice and warm because honeybees don't hibernate. All the other bees do. These ones don't. And it thinks, oh, there's honey in there. Perfect. So the bees, though there's not a... You need to put a guard in front of the hives. But if you forget to do that, I don't mean a bee guard, I mean like a metal sort of strip with holes in. If you forget to do that, a mouse can get in to there and then start to hibernate, eat some of the honey and start to hibernate. But I've got a friend, he opened his hive in spring. I was like, what's this thing in here? It's like knocking it like that. And it was actually the mouse that had been stung to death and mummified completely in propolis. And he was like, knocking it. He cracked it open. It was a perfectly formed mouse because airtight, watertight, everything inside this propolis tomb that it made. But anyway, guards the entrance. So things like wasps. And we've got a problem at the minute with the Asian hornet. I don't know if anyone's heard of that, or it's been spotted. The nearest to Liverpool it's been spotted is in Bury. It was found in a cabbage that had been imported. And what the Asian hornet does, just say, I bought a cabbage, and then the Asian hornet will fly off, queen, if it's a queen, and it will look for somewhere suitable to live. And it'll say, there's a hive over there. I'll just make another sort of outpost colony space here. And she'll be watching the hive, and then she'll go to the hive, and you see the bee with the pollen on her legs there. She'll wait for them at the front of the hive, and she'll just snap at them and eat them, like sort of Pac-Man. And then she'll go into the hive, kill the bees, eat all the pollen, eat all the honey and pollen, and then she'll make... But there's been a big issue in Jersey, I think it is last year. So they kind of call to arms, really. They're asking a lot of beekeepers around the country, can you come and volunteer and come down to Jersey and go and spot Asian hornets and kill them and get specimens of them so we know the size of them and what they look like, because they had a really big problem. And it's been, I think, Gloucester and around Hull as well. There's been an issue there. And Liverpool have been on alert because we're a port city and things are coming in all the time against Asian hornet and other things like small hive beetle. And there's other kind of diseases and pests that are coming in from ships and things, and that can spread quite easily. But there's one place in the British Isles that has no problem with these sorts of things, or very little problem. So can you guess where it is? Scotland's got a low, they've still got problems with up there, but it's an island. Isle of Man, yeah. They've got a really good beekeeping society there. They're really kind of tough. They don't import any bees. Like English people, we import bees all the time from places like Greece or Germany or Austria and Italy. And that's where this beetle has been found. The closest it's ever been found is Italy. You might think, oh, it's miles away, but it's never been found that close. And we can't detect whether it's come closer or it is in England. So we have things called the National Bee Unit, which sounds quite kind of like Harry Potter sort of thing. And we have the bee inspector. It's like the Ministry of Magic. But we have a bee inspector that comes round, seasonal bee inspector, and he checks our hives, all kind of voluntary. If you say, yeah, check our hives, that's fine. He's checked a load of mine, and I've got a problem with varroa, which you assume all bees have a problem with varroa. Like this tiny mite kind of lives on the bee and sucks their blood out of them. That can cause other sorts of things. But yeah, he checks the hives, and thankfully no sign of Asian hornets or small beetle problems. Yeah. But as I say, because Liverpool's a port, it is on high alert because of that. And then after 3 weeks, that's the first time the worker bee will fly and forage. So she's looking for pollen, nectar and water. The pollen, as you can see on there, get all different colours. I'll show you this later, but in this frame, it's got loads of different colours of pollen in there, and each flower, it produces pollen, different coloured pollen. So you can kind of usually say like dandelion pollen is bright yellow, and then poppy pollen is quite sort of grey, and blackberry pollen is quite dark as well. So you kind of, all the colours differ through the year. I've got a book actually of pollen colours. It was quite expensive, but you're paying for the print quality, because if you just print something off the internet, you're getting, you know, my quality prints for my computer would be different from here. So you're paying for the print quality, and you can kind of match up, and some of them look so similar, but it's actually very different. I've got hives at Nest Gardens, and that, I don't know if anyone's been there, but it's a proper botanical education university, and I'm going to be running sort of experiments really to see what types of pollen, colours pollen that you can get in Nest Gardens compared to Liverpool 8 or to, I don't know, Litherland or Formby, where I've got hives, as a kind of data sort of experiment. But I'll say more about that later anyway. All right, so worker bee, all female. Queen, female. Then you've got your male bee, who are called drones. So what do you think the main purpose of the drone is? So I'll have a quick drink of water.
Mate with the queen.
Yeah, to mate with a virgin queen. Excuse me. And he has got big eyes. They're quite easy to detect in the hive. They've got big black eyes and a sort of square bum. And they're kept on standby during spring and summer for mating with a virgin queen. So they never mate with the queen inside the hive, because that would be their kind of brother, sister. So they don't do that. After the drone has mated, that's half of his bits stuck to the queen, and he just drops dead out the sky. And she flies off back to the hive, so he dies after he's mated. Only ever up to 1,000 drones in a hive, which I probably exaggerated a bit there. It's probably more like 500 to 700 drones, and none in winter. So why do you think none in winter? What do you think's happening in that picture, the bottom one? Left one is the worker bee, the one on the right is the drone, the male bee.
Execution.
Pretty much, yeah. Because he doesn't work, he doesn't do anything. All he'll be doing is, he doesn't feed himself or groom himself. He just kind of said, I'm hungry, feed me, and the workers will feed him. He'll groom me, fix my hair, they'll do all that. But because the worker bees think, right, it's September now, there's no use for you because we're coming into winter, there are no virgin queens being born, so we're taking you out. So what they do, this is outside one of my hives in Formby. The worker will drag him out, she'll chew his wings off, a part of his wings and his legs, and chuck him to one side. So he can't fly back, he's flying in a circle, and he can't crawl back because he's missing legs. So they're quite, mercenary, that they'll chuck that bee out because they don't want. So in a good colony, if you looked inside a colony now in winter, you'll find no drones in there. Yeah, expelled from the hive in autumn. And also drones they can't sting. No stinger there. I don't know if you can see that. It's just a nice sort of diagram really of what bees do and how old they are. So when I said when she wakes up, she's cleaning, then she's nursing, then she's doing all these other things. It's like an automatic brain they have to do these things in order, so they know when to do them. But when do you think is the only time that they regress and they go back? No, not coming into. It's when if you think your queen and your bees, half of your colony, the workers, have swarmed, and they have no new home, they haven't made, there's no wax there, there's nothing there. Sometimes you're lucky you can have a swarm come into an empty hive, which is quite good, which is handy. But if you have, usually it's on a branch, on a tree, really high up that you can't reach, and they'll swarm like on a sort of hanging down like that. And what I've seen bees, they've kind of made wax onto twigs. So they've started to make their home. So that is the only time that they'll go back. So once, and it's all the foragers that will go out and swarm as well. So when your bee wants to, when your queen bee swarms, your worker bees will go with her, but they're all foragers. They never have bees that have never left the hive in with a swarm. So she'll go off with all the foragers. So then that's the time they go back, because they have to have the building blocks, they have to have the wax in place for the queen to lay eggs. So that's when they go back and start doing cleaning and nectar transfer and making wax. It's the only time they kind of go back on themselves to carry on.
How long does the worker live?
Worker in, well, oh, sounds like someone sent an email. If you, in spring and summer, she'll live up to 6 weeks. But if you think, how I remember it anyway, inside the hive, from when the queen lays the egg to when she emerges is 3 weeks. Then the next 3 weeks she emerges and she's inside the hive. That's 3 weeks. The next 3 weeks she's foraging. So that's 6 weeks altogether. In up to 6 weeks, because they might be eaten, or a bird's eaten them or something, or someone swatted them. But from autumn, winter, your winter bees can live up to sort of 4 or 5 months, because they've got less work to do. It's like metabolism slows down, because in spring and summer they're working like crazy, collecting pollen, collecting nectar, because they've got that short space of time to do it. But in winter, that's when they've slowed down, so they've got less to do. So summer, they are literally working themselves to death, because that's just what they do. And they do it, what's the word? I can't remember the word, but they do everything for the greater good. They're not kind of, what's the word? Yeah, that's the word. They do everything. They're not selfless and selfish. They're selfless, so they're doing everything for the greater good. So if you go near a hive and you seem to be a threat to a bee, the worker, she'll kind of fly around you and warn you off, and she'll be letting out pheromones to tell the others there's something, there's a threat here. And if you continue to be a threat, they'll sting you. And that pheromone, it's kind of, the bee will die because it's kind of part of her nerves and bodies, it's attached to that, so she'll die. So it's a last resort that she'll sting. But on there, it's that the sting is a living, still pumping, and it goes into your skin like that, into your skin. But that's emitting an even stronger pheromone to the bees to say, there's the target. So they kind of generally will sting around there. And that happened to me once when there was a storm coming, and I didn't realise. And the bees had all got in, prepared, ready to sort of bed in for the night. And I was stung on my glove there. And I didn't feel it because it was on my glove. And then another one got me, until eventually I was like, what's all these bees doing on here? And I got 8 stings up my arm. So, yeah. I'm still shaking it now, like I can still feel it. Yeah, so that wasn't good. Okay. So, with wax, go on to wax now. Am I doing okay for time?
Yeah.
All right, okay. Wax. I've only just learned this recently, and I'm not a chemistry person. So you'll have to excuse kind of, anything. But it consists mainly of esters of fatty acids and various long-chain alcohols. Does anybody know what they are? Or could you want to explain what that is? Because I'm not good with this.
Yeah, it's basically a bit like margarine, just link it up.
Yeah?
So they just cross-link it, so you've got long strands and that forms the wax. And the alcohol also dissolve it, so they can end up doing skeins.
I've got, well, yeah, pretty much. I've got here a note anyway, a side note saying an ester is a chemical compound derived from an acid. I don't know what that means. A long-chain alcohol or oily, colourless liquids produced by bacteria, plants or animals. So you say like margarine, it is kind of that sort of thing. But if I was describing it to someone about, if you can try and compare it to something that we do, I'd say if you're working really hard and you sweat a lot, it's like using that sweat to build something. That's the kind of nearest I can think of anyway. But a honeybee, a worker bee, has to eat 2 to 3 kilos of honey to make half a kilo of wax. So it's quite an intense sort of thing to make, because they had to eat a lot of honey to make a little bit of wax in weight comparison. Which is why Jackie was asking me before about how much wax I take off from the hives, because I don't like taking even too much honey off the bees, never mind wax. But I only take off what I can really, because after frames have been spun in a centrifuge spinner, they come out sort of like that, really, all intact. The centrifuge has kind of spun the honey out, and you're left like that. So I could put that back in the hive, and it'll save the bees building up wax from just those shapes, those hexagon shapes. I'll show you these later, because it is quite a lot of energy to make wax. And I also leave a lot of honey in the hive. Like a lot of not a lot, some beekeepers, they take off a bit more, and they put in sugar water or kind of fondants and things to kind of think, okay, there's your food that you're going to live on for winter. But because the honey, they've made that all through summer, and I just think that's for them. I just take off any more that I know they're not going to need. So usually about 10, 11 of those full of honey I'll leave inside the hive, and that'll see them well through to sort of spring, summer next year. Anything above that I can take off. And I use it as well for educational purposes. I don't sell it or anything like that, so I just use it educational. And same with the wax. After you've spun your frames to get the honey out, any excess wax, and I'll kind of make lip balms with it, or wax blocks, again, as an educational thing. Some insects, like bumblebees, they make wax, but it's honeybees that make the most wax. And this is something new I've learnt as well, the countries which make the most wax, which I was quite surprised, because I wouldn't have thought these are kind of beekeeping countries so much, really, when you think of, when you buy, if you get a jar of honey, it says a blend of EU and non-EU honeys. The EU would be places like Bulgaria or Romania. So that's where Rouse honey kind of have a lot of their hives. And non-EU places like China and Brazil. And it's just kind of in a nutshell, really. If I've got a hive, my hive's up here on the roof, they'll be mostly foraging on Everton Park, mostly, and kind of up that way where it's greener and not so green on the other side. I'm trying to think where I am. Which way is Everton Park from here? That way, yeah. And because I've got 2 hives here, one hive, that's foraging, 2 hives, they're in competition with each other. So if I've got 1,000 hives in one small place, which is what Rouse Honey do, and other brands as well, because there's not enough forage for them wherever they are in Romania, China or Brazil, they kind of feed them antibiotics and sugar water. So it's kind of a really unhealthy way. It's like giving someone freshly squeezed orange or a Sunny Delight. It's like, oh, they look the same, they taste the same. So it's that kind of thing. There's not enough nutrition in the proper forage and flowers. So they kind of do that. So the sugar, the honey that they make is kind of like from sugar water. So that's why this honey taste is, you'll be able to, hopefully anyway, taste the difference. You can taste that landscape. It's quite strong. And hopefully when I tell you the answer, you'll be like, oh yeah, it does. It tastes quite strong. Okay. And how wax is made, like I've said, they produce wax glands 12 to 18 days of their lives, so they can't make it before that, only that time. And it's secreted as a liquid, and into sort of oval shapes, and the bees link together. Like there, that's called festooning. And they link together, and they sort of, it's like doing the conga, so they're getting the wax from the one in front, and they chew that wax until it gets to like a soft clay-like, where they can mould it, and that's where they build the cells from that wax. So you can see here where this is a flat pack frame, and I've put, it's called foundation, I put that foundation wax in there. But if I was to just put a frame in, this one it's an unwired, you can get a foundation wax with wires in it, which you can put it in the spinner and it won't collapse. Because this one was unwired, I can cut that out and sell it as cut comb wax. But if I put that back in the hive, that's when they festoon and they'll make sort of that shape. And it always is like it's bigger, wider at the top and thinner at the bottom, because that's the weight of it, because it gets quite, I mean, one of those full of honey, you're looking at a kilo. It's very heavy, and even a box full of 10 or 11 of them. I mean, I'm quite strong. I can't lift it. It's really heavy. So that's what they do. I've never actually seen wax come out. I don't know if have you seen it? No? No. I think at that point, I've seen them building the wax, but I've never seen them I've seen them do this all the time. So if you check your hive, open the hive up and you take one frame out, you put it to one side, take another one out, they start filling the gap. They start festooning and filling a gap. Because what honeybees hate, they hate wasted space. So if I left a gap, say all my frames are all together like this here, and I took 3 of them out and left a gap, they'll fill that with wax. And the queen will lay eggs in there, they'll put pollen in there and nectar in there. Honey, by the way, is nectar with all the water taken out and enzymes added, just in case you wondered what that was. But you can buy nectar, sort of like you can buy honey, not as much, but it's not turned into honey yet.
What's the enzymes you add?
It's their own enzymes that they produce. Honey's the only food that humans can eat that insects have made.
Right. Okay.
So it's kind of, I don't know the sort of science of it, but it is all their own kind of enzymes and sort of bacteria, things that they put into it. But because with nectar, just say your flower is there, the bees will suck all the nectar out. And that's just like a sugary water. And they'll take it back to the hive and they'll kind of pass it to each other to add enzymes in. And then you'll get a bee. I think there was one on an earlier picture. That top right there. She was the last bee to get the nectar. She'll put it inside the cell and she'll sort of evaporate it and kind of get the heat going in there and get the water content out. Because honey if you've looked through a refractometer, but I test my honey, and usually it's about 16-17% water, which is really, really low. And for example, it never goes off. Honey never goes off. You're supposed to put, an end of sell-by date on food because that's what you do. But they found honey in clay pots, in mummies' tombs, and things like that. But why do you think? I'm going to teacher mode now. Why do you think that you couldn't eat honey from a clay pot from 2000 BC? Have a guess. Why? Have a drink of water.
Does it soak up the stuff?
Carry on. Close.
Don't know.
The clay is leached into the honey.
Oh, really?
So it's kind of,
clay, all the
yeah,
bits of the clay.
it's leached in because they didn't have glass jars.
So it'd be like eating a big pile of sand, isn't it?
It'd just be like eating clay with honey.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you can eat it if it was edible. You can eat it if it was in a glass jar. So honey never goes off. So, hey?
Sounds like something we can sell to hipsters. Honey and clay.
Honey and clay, maybe, yeah. It's a good idea, yeah, for a tenner. So that's the wax. And I've put benefits of wax here because I make hand balms and lip balms as well. I've got one here just to test it out. It's an anti-inflammatory, antibacterial, antioxidant, so it's really good for cooling the skin and keeping infection out. It can heal wounds. So I don't know if you've, in gauze strips now, there's, yeah, they use honey in there and wax. Beeswax contains vitamin A, which is good to put in to the balms and things. You can make your own kind of sunscreen sort of lotion as well. It's good, prevents infections, possible and cold sores as well, because it's like if you've got a jacket and you put that nick wax stuff on it and it protects it from, so it's that kind of thing, it protects it. It's a good emulsifier, so it's really good at mixing with oils and wax and butters that I've used. So for example, coconut butter, almond oil and things like that, really good mixes with it. It's been used for, you know, long time as well.
You know why they say not to give young babies honey?
Because, why do you think? Well, why do, because there's that botulism. Because bees, when they collect water, they collect it from, possibly from soil as well. So that can end up into the honey. That's as far as I know, yeah. Yeah.
What age is that up to, do you know?
Up to 1, I think.
Up to 1, but once they pass about 3 months, they're probably most beekeepers will find
Oh, right. Yeah. I mean, some jars you'll probably see that it says do not feed infants under 12 months, but yeah. So honey in history, bees and wax. I mean, it goes way back. It's a really great substance to use. It's been used for candles, seals, for documents and things in medieval times. Now, today, honey is used in gauze strips as well, to fight infections and things like that. And use it as polish. Yeah, the Egyptians were mad on honeybees. They had loads of hieroglyphics with honey and nectar of the goddess and those kinds of things. So it's been used a lot in history. This is only like a few things that I could find. But it's not, I don't know, candles now, I mean, I think it's the Roman Catholic Church, they always say they want to use beeswax candles and stuck with that tradition. You can get candles now made out of paraffin, sort of wax and gels and things, which I don't know if you've used those. I've used them, and they're quite toxic compared to if you burn in a candle made from beeswax. They burn a lot longer. You get a sort of cleaner, nicer smell as well. Yeah, I don't know if I missed anything else off that you think has been made, apart from what you're going to do today as well. And then my last slide is this year I'm looking to create an art piece, because I originally did a fine art degree, and then I did landscape architecture, which I do more of a community-based landscape architecture, so kind of education-wise and getting people involved in the landscape rather than, I've got a lot of friends who work for big companies who design something and they have no contact with community, which I thought I didn't want to do that. So looking for a collaborator or collaborators to help create an ongoing art piece. So possibly based on the roof of the tapestry here, and then have another location. I was thinking Litherland. I've got bees right by Rimrose Valley as a comparison, data comparison, and pilot it for this year, and then hopefully, touch wood, look for funding for it by the end of this year, so have something in place. So for next year, I could have like an ongoing art piece, data-driven art piece.
Why Litherland? Why Litherland?
I run a community garden up there,
Right,
and I've got 17 hives
Right.
up there, and it just Rimrose Valley is very different. It's probably one of the best places I've got bees that produce so much nectar, and well, they make so much honey because of where it is.
Yeah.
Compared to here, which is very different and very urban. And these will be slow to kind of produce anything.
So is that the
But-
main comparison, like urban to?
Yeah, just sort of,
Yeah.
it's more kind of, Sarah, would you say, it's kind of like semi-suburban, and where the bees, they forage to more rural areas because they can forage up to 2, 3, 5 kilometres radius. So that goes into farmland where it is. So
Yeah, well, I was surprised that Everton Brow's probably the best.
yeah, that's where these ones here will go towards. Islington as well.
Sort of slightly further than I imagined in my head for some reason.
Yeah,
But
they go. I mean, it's counterproductive.
It's funny, like it's almost like they're finding the green space in the city
Yeah,
for you in a way.
yeah.
Thoughts?
And that's kind of what part of the data is as well, because if they're collecting pollen from a particular plant, and you just think, didn't know that plant was around here, that you can, if you put it through microscope and really look into it, you can see the different, because pollen is all made of different shapes and different kind of, some of them are really spiky, some of them look like sort of snooker balls, some of them are kind of fluffy looking. So once you look at it really closely, you can think, okay, I know where that pollen's from or what plant it's from, and just trying to think where that is. Because when bees bring back pollen or nectar, they'll do a waggle dance, which is their way of communicating to other bees where they got that pollen from, for example. And it's based on where the sun is and how long they do this kind of sort of figure of 8. So this kind of central bit where they go like this, and they turn around and sort of do that. This central bit, it's equivalent to about, for 1 second equals 1 kilometre. So if it's, half kilometre, things like that, and depending on the angle, they'll say, and it's right down to like a few metres as well. They'll say, okay, it's 1.5 kilometres, 46 degrees that way. So that's the kind of data-driven stuff I'd like to create. Maps, colour, pollen, nature. There is, that's... Yeah, they have like GPS. Little GPS they put... BPS! That's good, yeah. Around their waist. And you could track where it's been and come back.
BGPS.
BGPS, yeah. So that's, I mean, if you're interested, then, let me know, and looking at something kind of art.
It'd probably be easy to get the pollen colour as they went into the hive rather than once they put it in the cells.
Yeah, because in these cells, if I did a cross-section of a cell and say it was that big, you'd have different layers of different pollen. So if you cut it open, loads of different layers. I have got a pollen trap, which the bees, they kind of go through, it kind of goes like that off their legs, but it can take their legs off. So I stopped using it when I saw all legs in there. So, yeah, but something like that. I was talking to John here, and he was saying about, was it infrared sensor or something for detecting colour? I'm really rubbish at all the tech stuff, I don't know. Probably something else completely different, he said. But looking at the colour through like an infrared system, I think, and detecting it that way.
Because the Raspberry Pi IR camera, isn't it?
That's true.
Because that gives you that, well, to us, camera color image because it's adding that extra bit on. So you might get a better colour variation on that than just on normal visible ones.
Yeah, I know you can use those normal cameras to tell how well plants are growing, because you can do some processing and basically pull that
Infrared,
chlorophyll there is in the plants.
Yeah.
So you can kind of detect how well, or whether there's something similar you could do with. I mean, I wonder whether also like machine learning or something, algorithms just feeding the camera. I don't know how you train it, but like.
Image recognition, so it picks up a bee and then picks up the pollen sacs. And it just takes the colour sample from the pollen sac.
Yeah, so you might be able to train it to detect where the pollen is, and then just be doing kind of colour matching on that or something. It'd be good. It'd be on the thing where you say like, I'm not a robot, and instead of it being like, pick all the pictures that have got cars in. Pick all the ones with the Could be in it.
Pick the ones with the pollen on. But yeah, so that's something like a data-driven art project. And as I said, I've got 2 hives up here.
Yeah.
I'll probably look to double that next year, if Jason will say it's okay. And so I'll have 4 hives, and then you could help me do the beekeeping and the testing of the tech and all those other things up there as well. So,
do you know when you say you can look in the cells and see the pollen?
yeah,
Do you get access to a microscope to do that, or?
yeah, I've got a microscope at home, but it's not anywhere near strong enough.
Microscope on the shelves through there.
Yeah, no, I'm just wondering what resolution. The pollen's pretty tiny.
Yeah.
Tiny.
There's there's a
I
university.
How you prepare it, because it's quite time consuming, isn't it?
There's a
preparing it?
university who I've given honey samples to, and this is another thing that I want to do as well, they can detect from that honey what plants
Yeah.
have kind of, it's come from. So they'll be able to tell, and the time of year as well.
Yeah, it's just
that's been done.
access to microscope.
Yeah, and they do the microscope
Yeah.
sorts of all that work as well.
Yeah.
But that's something I'd like to, the pollen especially, I mean at Nest Gardens, that could be the third site in comparison to here, that's going to
They're bound to
be off the radar, that for what they've got. So that's the kind of idea, really. So,
Thanks.
No, you're
Thanks very
welcome.
much, Andrea.
No, thank you.
When do we get the big reveal?
Oh, the reveal. Have one more taste of it then, of the 2. And if you've changed your minds, because I can see there's some on the other, so some of you are right. And then I've got some wax as well. This is from beeswax that I've made from hives of wax and Litherland. And then some of the foundation, just some examples of what goes into the frame there as well. And then I've got pollen in here. You can actually, if you just get the stick and just dig some out, you'd be able to see the different layers in there as well, different colours. Oh yeah, and there's some hand balm I've made, which is, you only use a little bit of wax for this, but you can have a trial of that as well. There you go. And then Jackie's going to say about, I don't know what the other thing is.
I suppose I want to say a bit about Does Liverpool, in case anybody hasn't been here before. We're in the event space here, and there's another room which can be used for events. It's also a co-working space. We've got a workshop with a load of equipment, including laser cutters and 3D printers and electronic stuff, sewing machine, sublimation printers, all sorts of stuff. And it's the community that's around it, which has a tech basis with a lot of Internet of Things stuff, which is going to be very useful for this. But also other things like the wearable tech group, which is how we've got involved with Andrea on this occasion, because Adrian retweeted some stuff about someone who uses beeswax to make fabric, which then he can embed sensors and conductive thread in, which I don't think that's going to be a major thing, especially given that getting too much wax stresses out the bees and that sort of thing.
Depends how much wax you need.
But I think it might be quite a nice thing for educational purposes and that sort of thing, that you could take that to schools and have the combination of the 2 things. With the wearable tech group, we've had a couple of uses that we might have also for beeswax, one of which is this, we've been growing kombucha leather, which is a sort of vegetable, a bacteria and yeast-based element that grows on the surface of a mixture of tea and sugar. And you can dry that out and make some nice, interesting, and perhaps with a bit more effort, an actual alternative to leather, but it absorbs water, so you need something like wax to stop that happening.
So did you add beeswax?
That is beeswax. That was furniture polish, so that's why it's got that brown colour to it.
They mix furniture polish with
paint thinners and...
Yes, because I was going to ask about that because that's solid, isn't it? And what we used had a liquidy texture that you could easily spread onto the kombucha. Okay. Because apparently, have we got some more kombucha to try out?
We do have some more.
Brilliant.
But next week,
yeah. Yeah, great.
What dissolves in an alcohol, does it, with these wax?
I don't know.
It's just
and the other things I know about, I went to a talk by someone from Cisco, I've forgotten her name, where they've been working with bees and they've been applying RFID tags to the bees' legs. So they must be really, really small. And then they were sort of seeing when they came in and out of the hive. And one thing they'd worked out was that the bee's life was not dependent on its actual age, but more on its flying time.
Yeah.
So,
it's also, I mean, if you put GPS on it, and that bee flies out, this expensive kit it's wearing, a bird might eat it. Or someone just swats it.
Then you'd be tracking the bird.
You'd be tracking the bird.
If something eats that, then tracking that.
You might be able to do it though with just like the low power radio transmitters or something, and then just triangulate from the base stations. So you're not, because like your GPS unit in the phone is like basically finding a bunch of satellites and working out how long the message is taking to get from a bunch of different satellites to work out where it is. And you can kind of do the opposite just by transmitting little packets out, and that would be cheaper kit, probably, might not be, but, and then you can just have some receivers that would pick it up, and if you know where the receivers are, you can kind of work out and triangulate it from like, oh, okay, the message took this long to get to, like, you'd probably just broadcast like a time signal or something, and then you'd have your receivers in known fixed locations, and they kind of go, well, I got it at this time, and I got it at this time, and I got it at that time, and then you can just do some maths. I think it's relative.
That's hard enough for me to understand you.
But it's alright, because there are many people in the community who have different skills. So you just be like, Julie, we've got some maths to do, and he'd be like, oh great, and then he'd explain it to you, and most of it would go over your head, or just for me. But at the end he'd go, and it's here, or he'd written some code that would work it out for you, sort of thing. So, so that might be a way of doing it.
Cheaper way,
and probably would require like smaller things to fit onto your bees. Because the payload's going to be quite.
You know, you said the waggle dance. Can you not analyse the waggle dance to work out where they're actually going?
I have done that because I've got bees in Formby Library.
Right.
It's the only UK public library to have bees on site. So it started. I only started last year, but I want to make that more of an educational thing in there. So I'm looking this year to put a camera inside, so when a waggle dance does happen, I want it as well shown on a kind of transmitted from there onto a screen, so you can see, be able to work out where that waggle, where they've gone. Yeah.
Because if it's that accurate,
why
GPS it?
Yeah, we don't
they're actually giving that information anyway.
Just BPS.
Yes.
They have dialects as well. I've got this now. I feel like I've taken over. They've got dialects, haven't they, as well? So different, in different parts of the world, they got bees from say South America and brought them to say Europe, and then when they did the dance, the bees from Europe couldn't understand them at first because they have a different dialect, and then over time, I don't know how long, they learnt the other dialect, which is quite cool. Yeah.
There was one experiment done where they, I don't know if it's true or not, I think it is true, that they fed bees cocaine.
Yeah.
And they took it back, and the bees
they danced a lot faster.
really exaggerated. It's 15 miles that way, and it was there, and they couldn't. Kind of the other bees couldn't understand. I'm not saying that was South American bees, but
it would link, though, wouldn't it? Let's be honest. Maybe they were Bolivian bees or something.
I think that Manchester were doing that work in relation to drug detection.
Yes,
chemical detection, so that it sticks its tongue out when it's senses particular.
Kombucha.
Kombucha, yeah, that's not to do with me. Really particularly. That's Ross and Jackie.
So it's the SCOBY of the kombucha. So people grow kombucha to make a drink, which is a type of vinegar, and which is considered to have health benefits. And the thing that does it is a sort of slimy thing that floats on the surface of this.
It's like a mix of yeast and
yeah, so
bacteria.
the SCOBY, the name of it stands for symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. And so the yeast eats the tea and sugar and makes alcohol, and then the bacteria eats the alcohol and turns it into vinegar, which is, and this is the way that normal vinegar is made as well, but it is a different product in some way. But the SCOBY gets bigger and bigger, and we've now found a source where we hopefully can get where someone's actually making the kombucha drink for
in LA.
yeah, and so they end up with SCOBYs left over, and we can dry them out and hopefully use them. The sort of idea for that came from the idea of making handbags. So.
But in the summer it'd be really nice if you've got the hives up there, if we could dry, because like drying out the kombucha is quite difficult. So
The trouble with drying it outside was it attracted lots of flies.
yeah. Do bees ignore other insects generally? Say tiny little fruit flies, not fruit flies, but.
They do. I mean, the drones are very. I get a picture of a drone. They're very social bees, so they kind of hang around a lot on flowers. There's no purpose. They're just waiting for a virgin queen. So they hang around a lot on flowers, and this is one way of the varroa mite can kind of jump on onto other bees. So if you've got one from one colony and a drone here, and it can, that's how you can get varroa. But they don't, bees, they'll only fight if another bee is trying to get into their hive. Doesn't live there.
Yeah.
But they'll only let that bee in, because the bee just want to come into this hive, and the guard bees will say, you're not coming in, but what have you got to offer? So I just say, I've got loads of pollen here, and so come in then. That's how they
let them out again.
drive them in.
They tend to let the drones in sometimes. The drones tend to get a bit more of a free ride than worker bees, because the drones will go out to drone congregation areas that are can be like 10 kilometres away from the hives, and then hang around there all day waiting for a virgin queen to turn up. And then they might just go, I'm not going all the way home, I've spotted her somewhere, and they'll pop up and try their luck to get in, and they'll let them in.
I didn't know that.
Well, what's the life of a drone?
Sometimes
Is that the full season, a drone, or is that 2 days?
It can be up to sort of 2-3 months.
Oh, so
Anytime they die, when they mate or when they're turfed out.
yeah.
So when the queen mates, is it just with one drone or with a number of drones?
With a number of them, but it'll be the sort of lucky one, if you want to call it that. His bits will stick to her, and the rest of them fall to the ground. And then she'll fly back to the hive, full of sperm, and then she'll start laying eggs.
So not many of the drones are successful in producing offspring. Then. It's just very small percentage. Really.
I get quite a hard time because it flies such a great distance each day, and you don't tend to think, you always find loads in the hive, don't you?
Say that again.
You always find loads of drones in the hive in the summer, don't you? And you're like, what's them? And you think you don't do anything, and then when they've actually tracked it, it's actually, they're travelling quite a long way. As I say, whether they go from the same hive back out and back, and whether they sort of like jump between hives, which I think a lot of the varroa and stuff spread.
But if you imagine each hive has one queen in it, and her pheromones are very different to every other hive. So I just kind of describe it as one queen will smell a Calvin Klein, another queen will smell a Cartier, another queen will smell another one. So if you come flying in, Calvin Klein tries to get into a Cartier, they can detect that straight away, and they'll try and get rid of it. But if you want to, if I've got 2 colonies here, 2 hives, and
this one has a queen in it, it's a healthy colony, and this one has no queen in it, there's loads of bees. So for whatever reason the queen's died, and you think, oh, I could merge those two and create a big colony. To do that, or how I do it, there's different ways you can do it. If you can spray all the bees in both with sugar water, and I kind of also cover them with ice and sugar, both of them, and merge them together. And usually, some people say the queen stays at the bottom of the box so she can get, or the workers get in and out, or it doesn't matter. Put a piece of paper, newspaper in there, with little holes in, and then merge the two together. So you've got one colony one there, colony two, all covered in ice and sugar water with paper in between. And what they want to do, what these ones want to do is they want to get down into there because they want to get out because they're all blocked in. And so by the time they chew through the paper, they've got used to the smell of that queen. So this colony will probably still have a scent of the old queen that had died. So, and then they'll be too busy grooming each other and kind of cleaning each other off. And 100% I've had a good rate, success rate with it, and the bees kind of get on, and then that's one colony then, like that.
So why would you do that if their queen died or something?
Yeah, if you've got loads of bees in one colony, or you can introduce another queen into it, but you're more likely to happen if you introduce a new queen that they can kill that queen because they don't like the smell of her or they just don't like her. They can kill her. But I've had more success rate merging two colonies together. I had a friend who said, why can't we do that? People who want to come into the country and the government doesn't allow it, so we'll cover ourselves with ice and sugar and we'll all get a hug. It's an art piece. I was like, okay.
I've got an allotment on the Wirral and I was thinking of making a hive, and I looked at the Warray hives.
Oh yeah.
Is that a good one?
Warray hive is with the hives here. So for that one, you've got a box here, and you put your frames in like this, and you have when you buy your frames, or some frames that you can buy, you have they're made in a particular way that they create bee space, which is that space in between there, and it's enough for bees to work and pass amongst each other. And the same underneath as well, when you put bees frames in another box underneath, you've got the bee space there. In a Warray hive, you basically put in just the tops of that in there. So you end up with wax, so if you just got that in a sort of empty void, you end up with big wax that hangs like that. And that's, I mean, it's okay if you kind of, it's sort of halfway between natural beekeeping and beekeeping, isn't it? It's okay if you want to increase the bee population.
It was more to get pollinators on the allotment.
Pollinators in.
Yeah.
But because I've got a friend and she's just bought a Warray hive and put the bees in there. But the only problem with that is if you want to check your hive, you need cheese wire to kind of cut through. And kind of my bee inspector said, in today's world, really, beekeepers should be monitoring their hive against pest and disease and things like that, only because we've got so much of it now. I mean, I suppose 100 years ago, 200 years ago plus, they'd be okay with Warray hive because we've got less problems. But nowadays, I'd recommend, only just for personal, because of the disease, but I'd recommend getting a proper hive.
And is there a standard pattern for making your own?
Yeah, there'd probably be something online, yeah.
You tend to find people use a particular type of hive in one area. So most people in the UK use in England use the national. Scotland, they've got their own slightly different ones, and the frames are slightly different sizes. And then in America they use Langstroth, which is based on champagne crepes. But they all, you can't use the frame from one in another unless you sort of work out the spacing and things like that. Because what you find is if your two frames are a little bit far apart, the bees will fill it.
With more
stick it.
Yeah, perfect. If I've got the frames back in like that, they'll fill that gap with wax.
So is that designed for a double cell back to back, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you can see that red stuff on the top there on the ends, that's propolis, which if there's a tiny gap, they'll fill it with propolis. Well, you've got a mouse in there.
So what was propolis? It's just for...
It's like a sort of tree sap that the bees collect. And it's a sort of antibacterial substance that, yeah, they clean the hive with.
Right, okay.
And I think it's quite popular now in cosmetics, shampoos and things like that, and creams.
So as well as the pollen, they're getting that stuff and all the foraging for...
Yeah, they're making
Quite a lot of
propolis,
stuff.
collecting pollen, nectar and water as well.
Right, yeah. Busy.
Hmm?
Busy.
Oh yeah. And most of my hives, this one here is a flow hive, which Alex, is he not here, is he?
He's
just-
recording.
He's watching on.
Oh, is he?
He's
Oh,
watching on.
this is his hive. And I've got hives that are made of polystyrene, and most of mine are made of polystyrene, and they've originated from Scandinavia
Right.
because they're quite good on being green in Scandinavia, and because it's a lot colder, they've designed and made hives made of polystyrene, quite thick, dense polystyrene, and it just keeps the bees warmer for winter.
Right.
And they have an earlier start in spring as well, so the queen will think it's warm enough now to lay eggs, and if there's forage out there, there's nectar for them, pollen out there, because pollen is a protein, so they feed that to the younger bees, like a baby food, and they feed it themselves, and honey is a carbohydrate, so that's why in winter they should have loads of honey that they've foraged for and kept. It's like a pantry that'll see them through winter. That's why I don't take too much honey off them.
Yeah.
But the flow hive is it's basically, I don't know if it's on the other side, but it's how those frames are made. They're plastic, they're wax. And just say, if I show this one instead, you can see it's double-sided like that, and and you've got this side that have eggs in it, pollen in it, but in this case honey in there and honey on that side. And what you do is, I don't know where the tap is, there's a tap which you put on there and connect it to one frame. And if you turn that tap, so just say that the cells are like that, they're open there, and that's kind of the entrance there. They break like that, so the honey would trickle through like that and into jar or whatever it is. So it cuts out that whole process of uncapping, spinning, and doing all that.
But does that mean you don't monitor it in the same way? Or you still
Yeah, well
monitor
this is one thing I ask, because I teach beekeeping, I ask my students, what are the pros and cons of flow
Yeah.
hive? Alex will hear me now saying this, but I'm still a bit
Not sure.
not sure. I'm a bit I think I'm a bit more against than I am for.
Take some of the fun away, spinning the honey is great.
Oh, but I love it's so messy and
Yeah.
just
Especially when
everything. I love it.
especially when there's a lot of alcohol and small children around, it's really, really quite spectacular.
All right. I teach. I do. I think it's part of. It's just a nice process to do, because once you've got all your frames there, especially when I'm teaching as well, and they're really heavy, and you get your uncapping knife, which is like a very expensive bread knife, basically. Uncap them and spinning it, and then watch it come out, and then you can use those frames again in there, because they use plastic frames. I'm a bit kind of worried about plastic, but
I just love looking at the frames a day or two later when you've put them back in the hive, and you go and look in 2 days later and they're clean,
Yeah.
spectacularly repaired.
Wow.
And they're already filling them again.
these ones. So just say I've just spun this, and it's still got honey in there. It's a bit messy. The bees will, as far as I just said, they'll clean it all up, eat the honey, fill it again.
What's
Just
your spinner like then? Is it a drill?
It's like
I've never seen one.
I've got a 6-frame electric spinner, but you can get manual ones that you turn.
Yeah.
It depends on the size. My 6-frame one is about that big,
Okay.
without the legs, and about that wide, and it's radial. Is it radial when it goes like that, or when it goes like that?
Right,
So
from
that's
the
what we
we
said
had
around.
Where they're stacked around like that.
on
That's,
the radius of the circle.
oh right, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, mine's a radial one, and it's just like a big, like the stainless steel bins you get, tall ones like that. Well, that's like a small 3-frame one, but a 6-frame one, and
I just went electric just because I was sick of doing spinning it. But educational-wise as well, it's just I think it's a nice process, and with that, you just don't know if, and especially because someone came up with a good point actually, one of my students, and they say, what happens when this is all full of honey and it's capped over? So you know when it's all capped over, there's a little bit here, the honey's capped over. So if it's capped over in there, and you empty it, is it still capped over? Do you know what I mean? So the bees might think that's capped over, that'll do me for Christmas. And then when you put the tap on, does it still stay capped over? So the bees still think it's got honey in it. So when they come to open it in winter, it's like, there's nothing in there. Or does it does the honey suck the sort of wax capping out as well?
I was worried if there's a big section that's not capped that you can't see from looking in.
Yeah.
And then it's like, so then you've got green honey mixed with your good honey, so the water content.
Yeah.
And then it goes.
That's a good point. So if you've got a load, all this is full, it's like of nectar. Well, before it's honey, this will only be capped over if it's got honey in it. And if it's still nectar, they won't cap it over.
So they manage it so one frame is entirely either honey or pollen?
Yeah,
or
I mean, it depends on the time of year. If you kind of leave the frames in there, you've had a good summer, this will all be white cappings, or like this is kind of dark and older, but these cappings will be all capped over with wax on both sides, and that's when you know, I'll take that out to spin. But if it's kind of like a quarter capped over, like round the edge, they usually kind of stock around the edges. If it's still nectar in there, if you're taking it out, it's a good point that you're taking out nectar. So when you look at the refractometer, I don't know if anyone's used it, just tells you how much water content is in it. If you look through the refractometer and it says 25% water, you can't sell it as honey because it's got to be under 19 or 18, I think, for it to be honey. So it's fine to eat, but and there's also a tendency to kind of, I'm guessing, to kind of leave the tap on and not check your bees. If you use it just for honey, I think, but I don't know. I'm not convinced. I don't know.
The other thing with capping, when you take your cappings off, you see classically it's the whitest wax, and it's the wax they used to save for the really good candles in church, the capping wax. But then you take the wax off, you take the cappings off, put them in muslin, and then you pour water over to get the honey off that wax and squeeze it out. And that's what you use to make mead with.
It's
normally got, say, yeasts and things in it, so you don't need to add any yeast or anything to make the mead. You just literally water, squeeze, put it in a...
That's one thing I forgot to say, how I got made it into these wax blocks. I mean, there's loads of different ways you can do it. How I used to do it is big pan, put all your wax in there, and water, boil it, and it all kind of mixes together, and then wait till it separates, the wax at the top, and then I can't remember how I did it. No, melt that down, or you scrape all the stuff off it, and you're left with a block like that, which you can melt down again and make into these wax blocks. But I've just bought a steamer, or the wax steamers, which it's kind of like a stainless steel bin where you can put your frames in, or you can put just clumps of wax in. So after you've taken the cappings off, you'll end up with chunks and chunks of wax. And any frames that have been damaged while you've been spinning them as well, which sometimes I put the wired stuff in, it just breaks up, put that in there. And the water is connected to this sort of bin thing, and it steams it all, it separates water, any bits of gunk and stuff, and it drips into sort of pure wax into a container. So that's what I've just bought. Because I'm thinking about going more down the beekeeping route now. I've kind of been doing it for about 8 or 9 years, so I just feel like it's something that I really want to do, but do more educational art, science kind of.
Is it something that people could do, is this a possibility because you could do all the educational stuff related to it, or is it something people could do as a that people are doing, you know, without doing that? Can they make money to live on from beekeeping?
If you're going to be, they say you've got to have at least 100 hives if you want to make a bit of money from it. And when I say a bit of money, you're looking at £20,000 plus a year.
Yeah, no, I'm just interested to know, you know, because you're doing other things as well.
Yeah, I'm kind of working full time and managing hives, but this year I kind of want to take down some of that work and do more bee-related things. Yeah. But beekeepers, they'll sell honey, they'll sell wax as well, and at markets and things like that. And they'll probably do a bit of teaching. I teach in schools, beekeeping in schools, so it's kind of the downtime when it's not bee season, because when it's bee season it's just crazy. Last year was just weird summer, everything just happened so fast. Swarms are fast, flowers coming out fast, everything was really fast. They just had to be kind of trying to second guess what the bees were going to do, because you don't know. If you could look in there, everything looks fine, you've missed a queen cell that they've made, and you know, they've swarmed. So another beekeeper's got my bees, but you've got to be kind of really good at what you're doing, but you have so many bee hives, you've got to be quick at but you race against time.
How often do you have to check your bees when you're beekeeping?
From about end of April, depends what the weather's like. I think last year there was a warm spell in March, so I checked them then. Whenever it starts getting warmer, you can see the bees flying, check them once a week. Because if a queen, she can decide if she's laying male eggs or female eggs. If she lays, it's usually at the bottom or the sides, she can lay those female eggs, and then it's like a monkey nut that starts to appear. And if you start seeing that, you know that they've fed that loads of royal jelly, that female. So it's not going to be a worker, it's going to be a queen. There's some sort of metamorphosis name that has, I forgot what it is. Long word anyway, and so she goes through the metamorphosis of not being a worker, but she's going to be a queen. Because all eggs are fed royal jelly, but one of them is fed more than the others. So she'll be a queen. If you miss that, and sometimes it can be, if I just kind of scrape that off, it can be there, so it won't be flush. So it'll just be kind of within there, so it'll be flush. And I've just gone like that, thinking I've not got much time on here. Okay, that looks fine. Put it in, and there's, you know. If I miss that and they swarm in the next hour or something, and I'll go back and think, where's all my bees? Where's the queen? But the two things that you can see in the hive if you know your queen is there. One of them's seeing the queen. What's the other indication, evidence that you know there's a queen in the hive?
Just the calmness of the...
Yeah, calmness, yeah, that's why, yeah, what's a third one then? What's a queen do? What's her job?
What's her main job?
Just laying eggs. So if you see eggs in there, fresh eggs as well, you know the queen's in there. Because when the queen lays an egg, the fresh egg will stand up like that, and then after 2 or 3 days,